Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you. The case of Christine Marie Paolilla. Once a bright and promising student, Christine became embroiled in a web of tragedy and despair. Her story serves as a cautionary tale, highlighting the dangers of unaddressed mental health challenges, peer pressure, and the devastating impact of unresolved trauma. Christine Marie Paolilla was born on March 31st, 1986, on the peaceful shores of Long Island, New York. She was the second child of Lori and Charles, with her father working as a construction worker and her mother tending to the home. During her early years, Christine was known to be a lively and sociable child, though she could also be shy at times. She shared a close and affectionate relationship with her doting father. Tragically, Christine's life was shattered when her father met an untimely demise in a construction accident, crushed by falling bricks. The sorrow continued to engulf her as she lost her grandfather and great-grandmother soon after. Bereft of her father's comforting presence, Christine's family struggled with grief. Her mother, Lori, grappling with the weight of her husband's death, found solace in drugs, spiraling into addiction. Unable to provide a stable environment, Lori lost custody of Christine and her older brother, who found refuge in the care of their grandparents. During her early school years, Christine was diagnosed with alopecia, a condition that caused her to lose her hair, eyebrows, and eyelashes. Each morning, she would find clumps of her hair scattered across her pillow, resulting in bald patches and eventually affecting her eyesight, leading to the loss of her eyebrows and eyelashes. Additionally, she also had poor vision, which required her to wear thick eyeglasses from kindergarten through middle school. Christine endured persistent taunts and bullying from her peers, a relentless assault that severely undermined her self-esteem. Isolated and despondent, she grappled with loneliness and depression, deprived of the companionship of friends to share her trials and triumphs. Her classmates struggled to understand the cause of her thinning hair, leading to persistent teasing and mocking. Despite her attempts to conceal the loss with wigs, often described as bulky and reminiscent of Halloween costumes, she found no respite from the ridicule, further adding to her distress. Her drawn-on eyebrows also drew attention, fueling the mockery she faced, even with the wigs. Her torment persisted, escalating to the point where other children would brazenly remove them. Each morning brought a sense of dread, as Christine faced the uncertainty of which classmate would inflict pain upon her that day, deepening her anguish and resentment towards school. After reuniting with her mother, who had overcome her addiction and remarried, Christine and her family left Long Island behind and relocated to Clear Lake City, Texas, a suburb of Houston. This new environment offered a fresh start for Christine and her siblings. Living in a predominantly upper-middle-class neighborhood and enrolling in Clear Lake High School, Christine prepared herself for the possibility of continued bullying, but fate had other plans. In a turn of events, Christine crossed paths with Rachel Carutis and Tiffany Rowell, two popular girls who welcomed her with open arms and extended their friendship to her. Embracing this opportunity, they took Christine under their wing and initiated a remarkable transformation. With their guidance, Christine underwent a physical makeover, learning how to dress and apply makeup while also acquiring more stylish wigs. This outward change mirrored a profound inner shift as Christine blossomed into a more confident, outgoing, and content individual. With Rachel and Tiffany by her side, Christine effortlessly became part of the social scene at her high school, where she was embraced and admired by her classmates. Her transformed demeanor, brimming with confidence and charm, led to her being crowned Miss Irresistible in 2003, marking a poignant milestone in her journey of self-exploration and personal growth. Rachel and Tiffany exemplified social grace, effortlessly navigating popularity while remaining genuinely kind and inclusive. Rachel, with her flowing locks and captivating smile, exuded intelligence and charisma, considering a future in the United States Air Force alongside her passion for art and childcare. Tiffany, adorned with her radiant smile and boundless generosity, harbored dreams of a career in social work, complemented by her talents as an actress and her vast circle of friends, including her closest confidant, Rachel. Although a year ahead in school, they welcomed Christine into their fold, fostering a deep bond of friendship together. The trio reveled in laughter and camaraderie, with Christine finding solace in their company to the extent of shedding her wig, a symbol of her newfound comfort and happiness, as observed by her delighted mother in the summer of 2003. Rachel and Tiffany, at the age of 18, began a new chapter by moving in together. Meanwhile, Christine, who was 17 years old, remained in her final year of high school and frequently visited the pair. It was during this time that Christine started a relationship with Christopher Lee Snyder, a 21-year-old man. However, Christine's mother, stepfather, as well as Rachel and Tiffany, disapproved of the relationship. Their concerns were rooted in Christopher's history of drug abuse and his extensive criminal record, which included armed robbery. Despite the warnings from her loved ones, Christine continued the relationship, leading them to express their belief that she deserved better. Eventually, Christine found herself treading the same path as her boyfriend, succumbing to the allure of various drugs alongside Christopher. Christine's mother would later describe their relationship as toxic, revealing that Christopher not only isolated her daughter from loved ones, but also subjected her to alleged sexual assault. The couple's dynamic was plagued by intense jealousy, leading to frequent and heated conflicts. One particularly humiliating incident occurred when Christopher brazenly appeared at Christine's school, forcibly removing her wig in a deliberate attempt to shame her in front of classmates. Battling deep-seated insecurities and an unquenchable need for Christopher's attention, Christine became possessively jealous whenever he interacted with other girls. Christopher's family, recognizing the doomed nature of their relationship, pointed to the relentless arguments that plagued the couple. One such dispute escalated to the point where Christine spent an entire night on Christopher's front lawn, issuing threats of violence against his family. The police were frequently called to intervene in Christine's tumultuous relationship, and Christopher allegedly confided in his loved ones that he was truly frightened by only two things: the authorities and Christine herself. Despite the countless fights and clashes, Christine adamantly refused to sever ties with Christopher, a decision that would ultimately lead to devastating consequences. On the afternoon of July 18, 2003, Christopher and Christine visited Tiffany's home with the intention of stealing drugs and money. Tiffany was present with her boyfriend, Marcus Priscilla, his cousin, Adalbert Sanchez, and Tiffany's friend, Rachel. Allegedly, Marcus and his cousin were involved in drug dealing, leading Christopher and Christine to believe that drugs were stored in Tiffany's home. They planned to rob these drugs, and an argument between Christopher and Marcus ensued, resulting in the shooting of all four individuals in the home. Tiffany and Rachel sustained multiple gunshot wounds, including shots to the crotch, indicating a motive of sexual aggravation and jealousy. Adalbert Sanchez, Marcus's cousin, had recently moved to Clear Lake to escape violence, only to be killed in the tragedy shortly after his arrival. Rachel, critically wounded, tried to call for help but was suddenly found by Christine. In a shocking turn of events, Christine repeatedly hit Rachel on the head with the butt of her .38 caliber revolver until Rachel stopped moving. Christine later confessed to the police that Rachel had begged for her life, but Christine had chosen to kill her anyway. Less than an hour after he committed the murders, Christopher drove Christine to her job at Walgreens, where she worked at the makeup counter, and she acted as if nothing had happened. At around 6 p.m., a friend of Tiffany's, who was 18 years old, came to her house to join the group. When she got no response to her knocks, she noticed that Tiffany's and Marcus's vehicles were still parked outside. She became worried, entered the unlocked door, and was met with a horrific scene. Her friends were dead. She immediately fled the scene and called the police. The police characterized the crime scene as excessively brutal, earning the label overkill, due to its horrific nature, initially suspecting it to be linked to drug trafficking. The victims, Tiffany and Rachel, had recently graduated and worked at a strip club, while Marcus was involved in selling cocaine. As a result, the police initially presumed that the crime was orchestrated by professionals connected to the drug trade, given that all the victims, except for Rachel, were killed in a manner consistent with execution-style murders. After the murders, the police launched an investigation, using descriptions of the suspects given by neighbors who had seen them walking to and from the home. The timeline of events showed that the murders took place around 3:25 p.m. Notably, Christine had already clocked into her job before 4 p.m. that same day. Although Christine appeared distressed in front of her family when the murders were announced, she supposedly didn't attend the victim's funeral due to depression. Christine took a significant step towards reforming her life by checking herself into rehab to overcome her drug addiction. Around the same time, Christopher was arrested in Kentucky and put behind bars for unrelated car theft charges, which ultimately led to the demise of their relationship. Nevertheless, the Clear Lake massacre remained a mystery, unsolved, for 3 long years, despite concerted efforts to crack the case. In 2004, Christine checked herself into a rehab center in Ville, Texas, to overcome her addiction to drugs. It was there that she met Stanley Justin Rott, and a romance developed between them. After completing their treatment programs in 2005, they got married, vowing to stay drug-free together. They used the $360,000 trust fund left by Christine's biological father to start their new life, investing in an apartment. Christine's family had concerns about her marriage, particularly given Stanley's past of allegedly taking advantage of women financially. Christine and Stanley had made a conscious effort to stay away from drugs, but their happiness was short-lived. As the second anniversary of the murders approached in July 2005, the media's renewed focus on the case brought back painful memories for Christine. Rather than mourning the loss of her loved ones, she became increasingly upset by the released suspect sketches. This distress led her to confide in Stanley about her role in the murders, causing the couple to go into hiding in November 2005. Christine and Stanley were living in a San Antonio motel room where they spent the following 8 months regularly using heroin and cocaine. On July 8, 2006, the police received an anonymous tip about the murders. The informant claimed to have been in rehab with Christine and overheard her confessing her involvement in the crime to Stanley. Acting on this information, the police located Christine on July 19, 2006, and placed her under arrest. Stanley was also apprehended after the authorities discovered 70 vials of heroin in their room. While in custody, Stanley disclosed a startling revelation to the police. He alleged that Christine had confessed to him that after the shooting, she encountered Rachel, who was still alive, and proceeded to kill her friend by beating her to death. Christine tried to shift the blame to her ex-boyfriend Christopher during her questioning by the detectives, saying he came up with the plan to rob her friends, which went wrong. She told the police that all she wanted was to get drugs and money and didn't mean to hurt anyone. According to Christine, a fight broke out between Christopher and one of the men there, and shots were fired. She claimed Christopher forced her to pull the trigger by putting his hand over hers. The story that was told about the event was proven to be false by the coroner's reports, which showed that 2 different guns were used. Additionally, Christine admitted to going back to the scene to make sure the victims were dead, and she described a disturbing encounter with her friend Rachel, whom she claimed to have hit multiple times with a gun while Rachel was trying to call for help. Despite possessing this knowledge, Christine's defense attorneys maintained that she had never wielded a firearm and harbored no intention of causing harm. Meanwhile, Christopher, the other perpetrator in the crime, was released from jail. However, Upon police entering his residence, they discovered that he had vanished without a trace, even before law enforcement arrived. Reportedly, he had become aware of the warrant for his arrest and the impending capital charges against him. Christopher had apparently moved to South Carolina and started dating a woman he met online. After finding out about the arrest warrant, he allegedly brought back pills and soda from South Carolina. Sadly, his body was later found lifeless in a nearby wooded area, and medical examiners confirmed that the cause of death was an overdose of pills. Inside the safe, police found 2 guns that were later matched to the murders. Christine's husband, Stanley, told the authorities that she had admitted to being involved in the murders, and he agreed to testify against her. His testimony was later confirmed to be true. Christine has never expressed remorse for the killings, nor provided any motive. However, psychiatrist Gail Saltz theorizes that her actions stemmed from envy and jealousy toward her more popular friends. Christopher's sister, Brandy, concurs that jealousy was likely the driving force behind the murders, reflecting on Christine's demeanor and remarking, "I remember her being intensely jealous." There must have been some underlying jealousy between Christine and Rachel. Christine was found guilty of 4 counts of capital murder on October 13, 2008. Despite being a juvenile offender at the time of the crimes, she was spared the death penalty and received a life sentence in prison. Despite filing multiple appeals regarding her sentence, all have been rejected. Christine is currently serving her sentence at the Christina Melton Crane Unit in Gatesville, Texas, and is scheduled for parole eligibility in July 2046, at the age of 60. Christine's downward spiral had devastating consequences, resulting in the loss of innocent lives and leaving the community stunned and grief-stricken. As the community came to terms with the tragedy, they rallied together to pay their respects to those who were taken too soon and to offer each other comfort and support in the face of unbearable sorrow. The tragic outcome of Christine's story serves as a poignant reminder of the urgent need to prioritize mental health awareness and to provide timely support and intervention to individuals grappling with trauma and mental health problems. Hello friend, Boat Landing, a location merely 3 miles away from Sydney and Tammy's residence. Sydney initially denied this call, only admitting to it when presented with Heather's phone records by the police. He claimed to have spoken to her, directing her to cease contacting him. Heather reached Peachtree Boat Landing at 3:38 a.m. and attempted to contact Sydney several times, but received no response. 2 CCTV cameras recorded a vehicle resembling Sydney and Tammy's, moving from their residence towards Peachtree Boat Landing the next evening. Heather's green Dodge Intrepid was discovered parked at Peachtree Landing on the Waccamaw River by a local officer. The authorities questioned Heather's father, Terry, as the vehicle was registered under his name. Upon inspecting the car, they noticed that Heather's keys, ID, purse, and phone were missing. Terry was permitted to take the car back home. Despite Terry's repeated attempts to reach Heather, his calls went unanswered. When the police visited of May 9, 2043, Heather Elvis has never been found, and a tribute garden has been set up at Peachtree Boat Landing in dedication to her. Heather's disappearance left a void in the lives of her family and friends, and their pain, unanswered questions, and desire for closure became part of the story of Myrtle Beach. The community came together in search efforts and vigils, united by hope for answers. Heather's story touched hearts beyond the coastal town, highlighting the challenges of love and relationships. As we honor Heather Elise Elvis, let her memory remind us of life's fragility and the need for compassion and understanding. Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you, the case of Sarah Everard. Sarah Everard was born in June 1987 to Jeremy Everard and Susan Everard. Her father worked as a professor of electronics at the University of York, England, United Kingdom, and her mother worked in charity. She was the youngest of 3 children in the family, with older siblings James Everard and Catherine Everard. The family home was located in a quiet cul-de-sac in the Heslington area of the city, and Sarah would often be seen playing in the street with her siblings and other local children. She attended the local comprehensive Fulford School in 2005, where she was remembered as an incredibly likable, vibrant, caring and popular girl who excelled at sports and performed well academically. After completing her A-levels, she left Fulford School in 2005 after securing a place at Durham University, where she studied for a degree in human geography and graduated in 2008. Sarah started her career as an account executive at Proximity London in July 2008, where she worked for 4 months. After that, she joined Rapier as a senior account manager in September 2009. She worked there for 3 years and 6 months before leaving to work at a travel agency. From February 2021, Sarah has been working as a digital account director at McCormack & Morrison, as well as a freelance client lead at Flipside Group, a freelance company. On the evening of 3rd March 2021, Sarah was walking home to Brixton Hill from a friend's house near Clapham Common. Unfortunately, something terrible happened. The following day, Sarah's boyfriend, Josh, reported her disappearance to the police. They were supposed to meet, but she didn't show up and didn't respond to any of his calls. Her family and friends were shocked, as she was in regular contact with them, and it was completely out of character for her to disappear like that. A large-scale search operation was launched, involving hundreds of officers and members of the public. The search concentrated on the area between Clapham and Brixton, including parks, woodlands, and other open spaces where CCTV footage had captured Sarah's presence the previous night. Police stated that she was believed to have walked through Clapham Common after leaving her friend's flat and heading towards her home in Brixton, a journey that should have taken approximately 50 minutes. The police issued a public appeal for information, requesting anyone who had witnessed Sarah or had any relevant information that could assist the investigation to come forward. They released footage captured from the dashcam of a passing police car and a private doorbell-type camera, which showed Sarah walking alone along the A205 Pointers Road towards Tulse Hill, south of Brixton. She spoke to her boyfriend on her phone for around 15 minutes and agreed to meet him the following day. It was uncertain whether she made it home. The police also released a photo of Sarah and a description of her attire when she was last seen. She was wearing a green rain jacket, navy blue trousers with a white diamond pattern, and turquoise and orange sneakers. It was believed that she was also wearing green earphones and a white beanie hat. The investigation was led by the Metropolitan Police's Specialist Crime Command, which deployed over 120 officers and staff to work on the case. The search was conducted with the assistance of police dogs, helicopters, and specialist search teams. Specialist officers were brought in from across the force, and the police received more than 120 calls from the public regarding the case. They asked anyone who may have relevant dashcam or other footage to come forward. Sniffer dogs searched gardens in streets around the search site near Everard's presumed route home and in the nearby Oaklands estate. Officers also searched a pond in Clapham Common and drains along the A205. Investigators quickly found CCTV footage showing a police officer from the force's Parliamentary and Diplomatic Protection Command, later identified as Wayne Couzens, with Sarah Everard on 2 occasions. The footage depicted them next to a rented Vauxhall Astra, along with the car's license plate. It was discovered that on the 28th February 2021, Couzens had reserved a white Vauxhall car from a rental company in Dover. On the 3rd March, after finishing a 12-hour shift at the US Embassy in London, he travelled to Kent to pick up the rented vehicle. Subsequently, he drove back to London, where he was seen in Earl's Court and on Battersea Bridge. Upon reaching Clapham, he drove to Earl's Court again before returning to Clapham around the time Sarah Everard went missing. Couzens had parked the Vauxhall on the pavement outside Pointers Court, stopped Everard, and showed her his police warrant card before handcuffing her. Around that time, Cousins and Everard entered the car, and Cousins drove to Kent, where the route of the car was retrospectively tracked using CCTV and ANPR. Cousins and Everard were again spotted in Dover and had transferred to Cousins' personal seat car. Cousins then drove to Hodes Wood near Ashford, where his car was captured on CCTV in the area between 3:22 and 6:32, before driving back to Dover to switch back into his rental car before returning it. The Metropolitan Police then arrested Wayne Cousins, along with a woman, at an address in Kent in connection with Everard's disappearance, and they were taken into custody. However, the woman was later released without charge as the detectives continued their investigation. They found that Cousins had told senior colleagues that he was suffering from stress and no longer wanted to carry a gun. Cousins bought and filled a petrol container at a service station in Whitfield and then drove to Hodes Wood, where his car was captured on CCTV at 12:37. He reported himself ill from work, handing in his equipment, including his police belt and handcuffs, which raised suspicions of murder. The police searched Hodes Wood and found human remains that were confirmed to be Everard's body through dental records. Her remains were found in a large builder's bag, approximately 100 meters from a plot of land that Cousins owned. The police also searched the site of a former body repair garage previously owned by Cousins' family at the top of the White Cliffs. The detectives questioned Cousins and learned that when his mobile phone had connected to cell sites in the area of Clapham, where he had sexually assaulted Sarah and strangled her to death using his police duty belt, he burned Everard's body inside a refrigerator he had bought. He then bought 2 large builder bags from B&Q before returning to Hodes Wood, where he used one of the bags to dispose of Everard's remains in a pond. He drove his personal car to Sandwich, Kent, disposing of Everard's mobile phone, where the police divers searched underwater in one of the town's watercourses. The police also focused their search operation around the rope walk in Sandwich and cordoned off approximately 1 square mile of the town. Sarah's disappearance and the heartbreaking discovery of her remains drew people from all walks of life together in grief and solidarity. The call for change echoed through the streets as individuals raised their voices to demand a safer world for women. Sarah, a vibrant and compassionate soul, was a beloved daughter, sister, and friend. Her disappearance left her loved ones devastated and searching for answers in a world where her safety should have been guaranteed. The investigation concluded that Sarah Everard had died from compression of the neck, according to the results of a post-mortem held at William Harvey Hospital in Ashford. Cousins was charged with Everard's kidnapping and murder following authorization from the Crown Prosecution Service. He appeared at Westminster Magistrates' Court and was remanded in custody before appearing at the Old Bailey from Belmarsh Prison. Cousins pleaded guilty to kidnap and sexual assault and admitted responsibility for Everard's death on the 30th of September. Cousins was sentenced to life imprisonment with a whole life order, with Fulford justifying the severity of the punishment by saying that Cousins' use of his position as a police officer to detain Everard was the vital factor that made the seriousness of this case exceptionally high. Cousins tried to apply for leave to appeal against his sentence, but his appeal against his whole life sentence was rejected by the Court of Appeal as of December 2021. Cousins was imprisoned at HM Prison Franklin in County Durham and was further charged with 4 counts of indecent exposure related to alleged incidents in January and February 2021. He pleaded guilty to 3 incidents of indecent exposure that took place in Kent in 2020 and 2021. Sarah's story has sparked important discussions about women's safety and empowerment, leading to various initiatives and advocacy movements, with the shared goal of creating a world where women can walk freely without fear. The global outcry for change following Sarah's tragedy calls for accountability, respect, and a shift in societal attitudes towards women's safety. We honor Sarah's memory by working towards a world where every woman can live without fear, where safety is a basic right, and where unity and empathy prevail. Sarah Everard's legacy will be one of strength, unity, and hope, inspiring us all to stand against violence, support women's rights, and strive for a world where everyone can live without fear. Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you, the case of Keely Bunker. What happens when a trusted friend who is meant to keep you safe turns out to be the very monster you should flee from? In the case of Keely, she discovered the dark and unsettling truth behind her friend's seemingly innocent smiles. But unfortunately, it was too late. This is the heart-wrenching story of Keely Bunker. We extend our heartfelt condolences to the family and friends of Keely, who will forever cherish her memory. Before the 19th of September 2019, Keely was full of life. Born on the 7th of September 1999, Keely was both a blessing to her parents and a role model to her siblings. Her mother described her as a precious and beautiful daughter, while her sister described her as one of the most vibrant, caring, and beautiful souls this earth has ever seen. She was a go-getter who had worked her way through the hurdles of life to get a degree and become a teacher. On the day she met her tragic fate, she was to go in for an interview to become an assistant teacher. But that promising life was cut short by her childhood friend, Wesley Street. Wesley and Keely had known each other since they were in infant school. Although they might not have been best of friends, they were quite close because they maintained their friendship through the years. It was for this reason Keely invited him to her 20th birthday celebration after the musician H's concert at the O2 on the 18th of September 2019. Keely was very excited about that day. On the day of the concert, Keely and her best friend, Monique Riggin, met Wesley at the New Street station in Birmingham. After the concert, the trio went to a nightclub where they partied till 2:40 a.m. Then they got a taxi back to Tamworth, where they stayed. Keely's house was a walking distance from where they alighted, and Monique had asked her to stay the night due to concerns about her safety. But Keely didn't want to miss the job interview she had fixed the next day and said, "I've got Wes, he'll walk me back, it'll be fine." That was the last time Monique saw her. The next day, Keely didn't get to the interview, and friends and family tried to contact her. By 5:30 p.m. that day, her father filed a missing persons report. After reaching out to friends, the police discovered Wesley was the last person to see her, and he was immediately brought in for questioning. The 20-year-old man claimed to have parted ways with Keely when they reached a telephone box close to his home, leaving her to walk the rest of the path alone. As part of the investigation, the police officers told him to take them to the exact location, and he pointed it out. He even showed the officers the exact route they had walked to that very spot, and they couldn't be more grateful for his help, so they let him go. But at 9 p.m., her uncle, Jason Brown, who was part of the search party, discovered Keely's body submerged in a pond in Wigington Park in Tamworth. Her clothes had been taken off, and there were marks on her neck, indicating that she had been strangled to death. It was a horrifying sight. Wesley immediately became the first suspect. The police arrested Wesley, and the interrogation began. He stuck on the fact that he had left Keely alive at the telephone box. But when they went through his mobile phone, his GPS showed that he went to the location of the murder 7 times that day. And when he tried to argue his innocence, the CCTV footage showed him and Keely by Tamworth Rugby Club later than the time he claimed to have left her. His bank card and jacket were found in the park, and the post-mortem examination of Keely revealed Street's DNA. With this evidence, he was charged with the sexual assault and murder of Keely. Initially, during the trial, Wesley kept arguing his innocence. He mentioned that he was so drunk, he messed up the description of how the night went. He promised that he had left her happy, and she seemed happy. However, later into the trial, He claimed to have accidentally killed her during consensual sex in the park. He said Keely had flirted and teased him as they walked home, and in the end, they had found themselves in the park. But you should note that before that confession, he claimed that they were childhood friends who had never entertained any ideas of romance, so it was clear that he kept changing his statements to go in line with the evidence that was being presented. Wesley went on to describe how his GPS location showed him returning to the murder spot several times that day. He said that after accidentally murdering her during a moment of passion, he dumped the body in the pond and kept returning to the location to cover Keely with branches. When he was asked why he didn't tell the truth, when he was asked by the police and Keely's relatives before the body was discovered, he said, "I didn't know how to act and explain to other people how she died, because I felt embarrassed in myself and very scared to explain to the police, everyone, my mom and dad." However, the evidence presented by the prosecution showed otherwise. On their walk home, Wesley had persuaded Keely to go towards the rugby club close to the park on the pretext of going for a smoke. On getting to the park, he had forced himself on her and held her in a chokehold while she was fighting for freedom. His claims that he killed her in a moment of passion couldn't have been possible because it would take more than a few seconds for her to die. Then, when she died, he took her to the pond, covered her up with branches, and went home. The evidence presented before the jurors was already enough to find him guilty. But before the sentencing date, more chilling evidence about Wesley's horrible nature came to light. Due to the severity of the case, media outlets were quick to post details about the trial. This unknowingly triggered a reaction from women who had been previous victims of Wesley. In the court, Wesley portrayed himself as a young man who had made innocent mistakes. His father also testified that he was autistic and needed help understanding the proceedings of the trial. However, 3 women who had been victims of his sexual assault came forward to completely refute any claim of his innocence. In the year 2015, he sexually assaulted a 16-year-old girl. In 2017, his victim was a 15-year-old girl. And just a few months before Keely's death, his victim was another 20-year-old. Although investigations show there was a possibility there were more victims, those 3 were the only ones courageous enough to step forward. One of them told the court that she thought she was never going to get over it, but she had fought the sickening thoughts that almost overwhelmed her. Another said she was really scared to tell anyone because of how ashamed she felt, but after hearing about Keely's case, she just couldn't remain quiet. The third survivor shared how she blamed herself for the incident because she had gone to his house. Hannah Sway, the lead prosecutor, described Wesley's offense as a pattern of offending. She described Wesley as a man who tried to get what he wanted without having any regard for the consequences. She also mentioned that his innocent look and friendly character made his victims less wary of him. Reports show that his victims were either friends or acquaintances. It's easy to have a stereotypical image of a perpetrator, but what we often do not think about is a young lad who is popular, who has many friends, who is well known and liked, said Detective Inspector Cheryl Hannon, the senior investigating officer on the case. She also described Wesley as a devious and manipulating character, noting his arrogance in playing the martyr. He acted as if people were blaming him unfairly when he knew full well where she was and what he'd done, and the efforts he'd gone to concealing it to delay people finding her. His friend trusted him to walk her home that night, and it's only Wesley to blame that she didn't make it home. He was trusted to walk her home, but he manipulated the situation, preyed upon her, and ultimately raped and murdered her. He then went on to put himself at the center of the investigation, lying to the police, her family, and her friends that she was safe and well, changing his lies as the evidence was presented to him. Wesley was sentenced to 30 years in prison without parole. During the sentencing, The judge described how Wesley had cut the beautiful life of Keely short, just to satisfy his desires. She lost the opportunity of fulfilling her life ambition of helping to educate young children, and her family had lost the company of their beloved daughter, sister, and niece. Keely's relatives also shared how they would never completely heal enough to forgive Wesley. Her mother, Debbie, said that as Keely's family, the outcome of this trial will never be enough in terms of justice. Keely was the kindest, most caring, and innocent young lady, and she was only just starting out in her life. Such is the hell they feel, they are incapable of showing any forgiveness. The horrible fate of Keely is a reminder that we can never truly tell who a person is. Everyone should always take precautions when they're out so late, because a person who you might deem your protector might actually be the predator. Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you. The case of a family in Covina. We inhabit a world where the fragility of human existence is constantly on display. One moment, you may be reveling in the joys of life surrounded by loved ones, and the next, they are calling out for help, their bloodied hands reaching towards you, while you are paralyzed, your own life flashing before your eyes. This is not a scene from a movie, but a harrowing and horrific reality. It is true that we each have but one life, yet death can be a brutal, unpredictable, and intrusive force. Imagine a Christmas party with loved ones gathered together, celebrating the holiday season. However, the joyful gathering was suddenly transformed into a horrific tragedy. On December 24, 2008, in the small town of Covina, California, the Covina massacre occurred, leaving 9 people dead and the community in a state of shock. Gunshots echoed, and a devastating arson fire engulfed the home, trapping the victims inside. What was meant to be a festive celebration turned into a nightmarish scenario. Many were injured, and numerous unanswered questions remained. It was a profoundly sorrowful and terrifying moment, leaving the community to grapple with the underlying causes of this unspeakable act of violence. The Covina massacre remains a haunting reminder that even in the most joyful times, darkness can strike without warning. The Ortega family was having a great time together in their Covina home on Christmas Eve. In the dining room, Papa Joe Ortega, his wife of 53 years, and their children were playing a late-night game of Texas Hold'em. They had just finished dinner and were enjoying each other's company. The grandchildren were in the backyard playing video games and hanging out near the pool. They were having so much fun that they didn't want the night to end. Meanwhile, upstairs, the Ortega's 17-year-old grandson, Michael, was sitting at his computer, typing away. It was a peaceful and happy moment, with everyone doing something they enjoyed. But little did they know, this peaceful night was about to turn into a horror movie. Suddenly, there was a knock at the front door. The 8-year-old girl was so excited, she squealed with delight, "Santa Claus! Santa Claus!" A man dressed as Santa Claus walked in, pulled out a gun, and shot the little girl right in the face. 2 of her uncles tried to protect her, but they were also shot and fell to the ground. The rest of the family, including the Ortegas and 3 of their daughters, tried to hide under the dining table, but it was too late. The fire, which was ignited by a flamethrower device, was incredibly intense and caused a massive explosion that sent flames shooting up into the air. The flames reached a height of 40 to 50 feet, which is as tall as a 5-story building. It was a substantial blaze that required a significant amount of manpower to extinguish. In fact, it took a team of 80 firefighters over an hour and a half to finally put out the fire. It must have been a terrifying and perilous situation for the people in the house and the firefighters who were trying to save them. The fire was so intense that it made it extremely difficult to identify the victims. The flames were so strong that they severely damaged the bodies, making it impossible to recognize them. Therefore, the investigators had to use other methods to determine the identities of the victims. They utilized dental records, such as X-rays of teeth, and medical records, including scars or other unique features, to identify the victims. It was a challenging task, but they were able to use these clues to piece together the identities of those present on that tragic night. The Ortega family's worst fears became a reality that night. The assailant, Bruce Jeffrey Parro, was unrelenting. He killed Papa Joe and his wife, 4 of their children, 2 daughters-in-law, and even the 17-year-old grandson who was peacefully sitting at his computer. No one was spared. The entire family, who had been joyfully celebrating Christmas Eve just moments earlier, was mercilessly murdered. There were around 25 to 30 people celebrating Christmas Eve with the Ortega family. However, after the tragic incident, the survivors did not want to discuss it publicly. Nevertheless, some individuals working on the investigation provided information that corroborated the accounts given by the family members. This information helps us understand what transpired within the house. The family members described a very frightening scene. A man with a gun intended to harm and kill people. The family members attempted to flee and save their loved ones, but it was extremely challenging due to the overwhelming fear and confusion. When Bruce got to the party, many of the adults were near the front door because some people were preparing to leave, which made them easy targets when the attack began. Family members stated that Charles, one of the Ortega sons, identified the gunman after the gunman shot Charles's 8-year-old niece and his older brother James. Someone shouted, "It's Bruce!" Charles was shot right after James. It was an extremely frightening and perilous situation, and everyone was trying to flee from the gunman. Irma Chapo Ortega, a close family member, shared a heartbreaking detail about the tragedy. She said that James and Charles Ortega, despite being wounded, tried to get up and stop the gunman. They were badly hurt, but they still tried to stand up and grab him. Unfortunately, they were unable to do so. Irma also said that the older Ortegas, Joseph and Alicia, and their 3 daughters, along with one of their daughters-in-law, Teresa, hid under the dining room table. She had been in touch with some of the family members who survived the attack, and they shared these details with her. Someone yelled out, "Run, run!" and chaos erupted. The Ortegas and 2 of their daughters, Sylvia and Alicia, might have been killed while they were still in the dining room, but their daughter Leticia, whose little girl was badly hurt, managed to survive. Leticia had hidden under the table for a short time, and she called 911 and told the police dispatcher that she heard the shots, and everyone started panicking and running, and they all dove under the dining room table. Chapa shared a heroic story about her cousin Leticia. She said Leticia saw her injured daughter stumbling out of the house and decided to flee. According to a person close to the investigation, even though the gunman shot the little girl in the face, she may have saved her own life by turning her head at the last moment. The bullet hit her jaw, but fortunately, it did not kill her. The person who provided this detail preferred to remain anonymous, as the police were still investigating the incident. The investigators believe that most of the young people were saved because they were in the back of the house near the TV, likely playing video games, when the gunman started shooting. The 8-year-old girl was injured, and a 16-year-old girl was shot in the back, but fortunately they survived. The only young person who did not make it was Michael Ortiz, a 17-year-old who was sitting at the computer upstairs. Chapa said that Michael was probably killed by the explosion or fire that started when the gunman used a homemade device to set the house on fire. A law enforcement source said it appears that Michael was killed as a result of the fire or explosion and was not shot. It's a tragedy that a young life was lost in such a senseless act of violence. Michael's mother, Alicia, was also killed. But why did the murderer commit such a brutal act of violence? Bruce, a 45-year-old man, was very angry about his marriage ending. He and his wife had just gotten divorced, and he was consumed by hurt and anger. Instead of dealing with his emotions in a healthy manner, he decided to take revenge on her and her family. He chose a tragic and devastating way to do it by attacking them at their annual Christmas party in Covina, California. A team of FBI experts studied Bruce's behavior and found that he had some mental health issues, including extreme narcissism and obsessive-compulsive disorder. Although these conditions are not an excuse or justification, they likely contributed to his decision to commit such a horrific act. It's heartbreaking that a family's joyous celebration turned into a tragedy because of one person's anger and sickness. Bruce had a plan to escape after his attack on the Ortega family. He had even bought a plane ticket to Illinois, thinking he could just leave the chaos behind and start fresh. But his plan didn't work out as he expected. When he set the house on fire, he badly burned himself, suffering second- and third-degree burns on his arms, which are very painful and serious injuries. Instead of escaping, he was left with severe burns. It's amazing how his plan backfired and led to his own suffering. After his failed attempt at escape, Bruce drove 40 miles to his brother's house in Sila. He went there to end his own life. Lieutenant Fred Corral from the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office shared that Bruce had a wound on the top of his head, which suggests that he put the gun in his mouth before pulling the trigger. A toxicology test had to be taken on Bruce, and it was said to have taken up to 6 weeks to get the result. This test would show if Bruce had any drugs or alcohol in his system at the time of his death. When the police searched Bruce's body, they found something strange. He had wrapped $177,000 in cash around his legs with plastic wrap and was wearing a special underwear called a girdle to keep it in place. They also found his rental car parked to walk away from his brother's house. But when they tried to move the car, they realized it was rigged with a dangerous device that would explode if they touched it. The police had to be very careful inside his brother's house. They found 4 empty handguns and a lot of bullets, over 200 rounds. They also found some leftover pieces from his Santa suit that were rigged to explode. Back at Bruce's own house in Montrose, California, the police found even more dangerous things. Empty boxes that had held semi-automatic handguns, a special kind of shotgun called a Benelli M2 Tactical, and a container for a type of gasoline that was highly flammable. But what was most shocking was what they called a virtual bomb factory in his home. It was like a secret workshop where he had been making dangerous devices. It's lucky the police were able to find all of this before anyone else got hurt. On the outside, Bruce Parro seemed like a really charming and generous person. When the witness first heard about it, they knew he was wearing a Santa suit and had seen him more than once, but they didn't think anything of it until they were told that he had used the Santa suit to hide guns and other weapons. That's when it kind of freaked them out, thinking that maybe he had already planned this for a long time. Even the people who knew him best had no idea what was going on behind closed doors. They didn't know that long before his divorce was finalized, Bruce had started secretly collecting weapons and planning an elaborate escape plan. He was living a double life, and no one suspected a thing. In 2004, Bruce Parro met Sylvia Ortiz. They were introduced by her brother-in-law, who worked with Bruce at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Sylvia was 40 years old and had 3 kids from 2 previous marriages. Bruce's friends thought she was perfect for him, a kind and practical woman with a big family who could help him settle down and be happy. At first, Bruce was drawn to his wife's warm and welcoming family, but after the first year of their marriage, she told friends he had become cold, miserable, and distant. They often argued about money. In March 2008, Bruce and Sylvia decided to separate. Sylvia asked Bruce if she could stay in their home until her daughter finished kindergarten, but Bruce wasn't having it. While Sylvia was out at a family gathering, Bruce packed up all her stuff and left it on the driveway. Sylvia was devastated and had to move in with her sister in Glensdale, eventually filing for divorce. Bruce went to Gun World in Burbank on June 13th and bought a handgun for almost $1,000 cash. He got fired on July 31st for fraud and tried to get unemployment benefits, but couldn't get them. He went back to Gun World on August 8th and bought another handgun, keeping coming back to the store and buying a total of 5 handguns. He also ordered a Santa suit from a costume store, saying it was for a kid's party, and paid a $200 deposit. Bruce also went to a gun shop in Iowa and bought 16 magazines that can hold 18 bullets each, way more than California laws allow. Just a week before Christmas, his marriage to Sylvia was officially over. They had been having too many problems and couldn't fix them, so the judge ended their marriage in a courthouse in Bank just before Christmas. Bruce Parto rented 2 cars, a Dodge and a Toyota. He packed the Toyota with all sorts of stuff like maps, water, food, clothes, and a can of gasoline. He also put in 2 computers. Later that night, his neighbor Bong Garcia saw him leaving in the Dodge, which was weird because he usually drove his fancy Escalade Hummer. Bruce said he was off to a Christmas party, but Bong thought it was strange. As the house burned, a neighbor saw a blue car drive away with its headlights off. A pair of fake glasses and Santa's hat had been dropped in the front yard. Bruce drove to his brother's house in Sylmar, 40 miles away. He was badly burned with severe injuries on his arms, hands, neck, and legs. His Santa suit had melted into his skin, and he was in a terrible state. When his brother got home at 3:10 a.m., he found Bruce's body on the couch with 2 guns next to him. He had shot himself in the mouth while still wearing his wedding ring. Letitia Youssef Sky is a strong woman who chooses not to let anger and hate consume her. She says she can't do anything to change what happened, and she can only focus on what's brought to her and the good things that are brought to her. She is grateful for the love and support she's received from people she didn't even know, and this gratitude has helped her heal. Leticia has also stopped dwelling on the past and the person who hurt her family. She says she won't allow him to consume them with his evilness, and instead chooses love and encourages others to do the same. Leticia believes love is the strongest energy and that it can bring people together and help them heal. She also thinks it's important to teach our children about love and kindness so they can grow up to be good examples for others. She says our kids are our future, and we have to be an example for them. If we teach them that it's okay to hate, it's okay to be violent, and make them feel less than, then what hope do we have? During a school walkout, Katrina Y.F. Sky could read the names of the 17 victims killed in Parkland, Florida, 1 month ago. Gun violence is personal for the Lal High School student. Nearly 10 years ago, she survived a Christmas Eve massacre when she was only 8. Being able to really fight for something that is truly close to my heart is very different. 12 years have passed, and Leticia and Katrina Youssef Sky are working hard to keep their family's tradition and happy memories alive. The family still gets together for dinner, exchanges gifts, and shares stories about their loved ones who are no longer with them. On Christmas Eve, they visit the cemetery where their family members are buried instead of going to church. One of the nephews who lost both his parents in the tragedy has become the guardian of his 3 younger siblings. Leticia and her husband took in her sister's youngest daughter, and Leticia worked hard to make sure the surviving kids still had a sense of Christmas. She told them that the Santa who came that night wasn't the real one. The kids even went to a special camp to help them deal with their grief and trauma. Leticia says, no matter where you look, there are memories of what they used to have, and then memories of that terrible night. You can't escape it, but even with all the pain, Leticia knows that Christmas will always be special, and they will keep celebrating no matter what. Even though the investigation ended almost 10 years ago, the detectives who helped the family still keep in touch, especially around Christmas. They care about the family and want to make sure they're doing okay. Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you, the case of Candy Family Massacre. Imagine the sheer horror a 10-year-old boy would have felt upon waking up in the morning and leaving his room, only to discover that everyone in his family was dead. His father, mother, and 3 older brothers were all lying in a pool of their own blood. The story we will be discussing today is deeply heartbreaking and terrifying, and it may leave you questioning whether the people you love the most are truly safe. Jonathan Candy's family seemed to be a typical American household. Some might even view them as the quintessential all-American family. The family consisted of 2 parents and 4 sons, and on the surface, everything appeared normal. No one would have suspected that anything unusual was happening within the Candy family's home. The darkest part of this story is not even the fact that they were all murdered. It would have been easier and less painful for everyone to understand if a dangerous and armed man or someone who wanted to hurt the family had broken in during the night and murdered them in cold blood. However, that was not the case. The darkest part is that the person who killed the wife and 3 children and then took his own life was Jonathan Candy and not anyone else. The man who was supposed to be the husband and father, the one meant to support, love, and care for them, is the same person who took away their lives. Jonathan Candy, a 42-year-old man from Yukon, Oklahoma, worked part-time as an employee at the Paycom Center, one of Yukon's large arenas used for events like concerts and sports tournaments. During the recent basketball season, he was involved in the preparations for the home game of the Oklahoma City Thunder. Even though he only worked part-time, his jokes and laughter always brought liveliness to the arena. Jonathan Candy attended Bishop McGuinness Catholic High School. After graduating, he married his sweetheart, Lindsay Terry. Lindsay grew up in Prague, Oklahoma. As a young girl, she was a member of the choir and was always cheerful and full of laughter. Jonathan Candy was the funny, goofy guy who loved to make jokes and make everyone laugh. Lindsay Terry was the beautiful young lady who loved to laugh and was eventually charmed and swept off her feet by this goofy guy's jokes and personality. Their marriage seemed to go on smoothly, even after many years and the birth of 4 sons. Jonathan and Lindsay Candy appeared happily married, and there were never any reports of possible domestic violence or abuse. Their children also looked happy and lived like the average American kids. The couple's Facebook page was filled with family photos of happy times, and anyone scrolling by would believe they were a regular, happy family. Jonathan always spoke fondly to his relatives and friends about how his family and children were his entire world. But then, on April 22, 2024, something unexpected and unimaginable occurred. The name of Jonathan's family's youngest son has been withheld for privacy reasons, but what we do know is that this little boy woke up on April 22, 2024, expecting it to be a normal day. He had no idea anything unusual was about to happen. He had slept through the night with a box fan blowing in his direction, so he couldn't have heard anything going on outside. The only thing he remembered hearing was the fire alarm that went off during the night, but he had gone back to sleep right after that. At around 9 a.m., he stepped out of his room only to find his entire family in a pool of blood. At 9:30 a.m. on April 22, 2024, the 10-year-old boy called 911 and told the dispatcher that he found his entire family dead. Not too long after, the police arrived at the home of the Candy family near Southwest 29th Street and Czech Hall Road. They entered the house and were shocked by what they saw. It was nothing short of a massacre. After their inspection, they saw 39-year-old Lindsay Candy, who had been shot and killed. She was murdered along with her sons, 18-year-old Dylan Candy, 14-year-old Ethan Candy, and 12-year-old Lucas Candy. The suspected killer, 42-year-old Jonathan Candy, was also found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. It didn't take too long to conclude that this was a case of murder-suicide, but the question on everyone's mind was, why did this happen? The sole survivor was the 10-year-old who made the call to 911. Neighbors on Czech Hall Road noticed as emergency vehicles began arriving at their neighbor's home. They were puzzled about what might have occurred. After an investigation, it was revealed that the father, Jonathan Candy, allegedly hunted down and killed his wife and children one by one, except for the youngest son. An interview with Oklahoma officials revealed that 2 of the victims' bodies were found upstairs, and the other 2 were found downstairs. There were no signs of a struggle at the crime scene, which adds more uncertainty to what happened. In most cases like this, it is unusual for the killer to spare just one person and kill everyone else if the intention was a murder-suicide. Usually, everyone present is a casualty. What could have happened? Why did Jonathan Candy decide to spare the youngest son? Is it possible he came to his senses at the last minute, or did he have a special relationship with this child? Unfortunately, these questions might remain unanswered, because the relatives of the Candy family realize how difficult this would be for the young boy, and they think it's best to leave him out of any further investigations for the time being. Until then, this case would remain a mystery. One of the officials in charge of the investigation, Dr. Joni Johnston, a clinical and forensic psychologist, was shocked by the entire scenario. She had never encountered a case where a parent killed some of their children and let just one survive. Friends and neighbors who saw Jonathan before the murders said everything seemed normal to them. There were no unusual or out-of-place signs. Jonathan's colleagues specifically mentioned that he attended the Thunder Pelicans playoff game just hours before the tragic murders occurred. Nobody is certain if there were any warning signs that the people around the family should have noticed. There was no evidence of domestic violence, which is often a common factor in murder-suicide cases. Until now, no one can state or accurately speculate the motive behind the murders. All we know is that there was possibly an altercation between Jonathan and Lindsay on the night of the murders. No one knows what their argument could have been about, and why Jonathan decided that the best way to deal with the situation was to kill his wife and methodically hunt down and kill 3 of his children. He seemed like a loving and supportive father, but what could have made him shoot and kill some of the people he claimed to love the most in the world? Something may have happened. He killed his wife and several of his children, and then decided to take his own life, perhaps to escape the situation. Ongoing investigations are trying to find out if the family was experiencing any form of financial crisis. Financial difficulties in households can sometimes lead to depression, particularly for the man who may feel the weight of the burden on his shoulders. This could result in distorted thinking and increase the chances of feeling hopeless and without help. Another factor investigators are considering is whether Jonathan had any form of mental health challenge that he was able to hide effectively and did not share with anyone. There is still a stigma surrounding seeking help for mental health challenges, and those who do not seek help often end up making terrible mistakes that can negatively impact their own lives and the lives of their loved ones. Signs of depression in men often differ from those exhibited by women. Men may have difficulty processing or verbalizing their depressive feelings. Instead, they may isolate themselves, become irritable and edgy, and express anger rather than sadness. The people around them, such as family, friends, and loved ones, may not recognize these behaviors as signs of depression and the potential risk of suicidal tendencies. It's quite unfortunate when people don't seek help for mental health issues on time, because when they enter a certain stage of depression, they lose all hope in the world and believe the best thing they can do is take their own life. The actual motive behind such tragic incidents is not known, so for now, this remains a mystery to everyone. On Lindsay Candy's Facebook page, one of her childhood friends, Kami Cruz, upon hearing the news, shared some details about her friendship with Lindsay. She said that she and Lindsay were both choir members at their church during their younger years, and they sang side by side in the choir. She also mentioned that she and Lindsay attended the same school until they both graduated in 2002. A particular memory Kami Cruz shared helped everyone see the bright and playful nature Lindsay had. She said that as young girls, she and Lindsay hid in a treehouse and fell asleep there. Their parents couldn't find them, became worried, and called the police. At the end of the day, everyone laughed about the situation, stating how the girls gave them a fright of their lives, only to be found asleep in a treehouse. Cruz also mentioned that she and Lindsay had a friendship they could always pick up from where it left off. She stated how devastated she had been after hearing the news of the Candy family's death. She has been unable to imagine or process the entire thing. Cruz said on the Facebook page that Lindsay was so loved and special to many people. She specifically stated how fiercely loved Lindsay was by her boys, and how she brought laughter to every conversation and the lives of her parents, her sister, and their girl group. Dylan Candy was the first son of Jonathan and Lindsay Candy. He was a sociable person who easily made friends, and it was evident that he had a passion for drumming and music in general. In May 2023, he recently graduated from Mustang High School. He enjoyed playing in the marching band and attended Oklahoma Baptist University during the fall semester to join the Bison Brigade, which was OBU's marching band, where he played the first bass drum. The director of athletic bands at OBU, Brian Stackhouse, mentioned that the only reason Dylan wasn't leading any section in the band was because he was a freshman. However, he was placed in the position to play the complex first bass because he demonstrated proficiency in playing within the band. Brian Stackhouse described Dylan as an amazing young man with a big heart, someone who was always happy and friendly to everyone, regardless of his personal circumstances. He was an excellent role model for his peers, demonstrating the importance of dedication to the team, the ability to navigate difficult situations, the value of perseverance, consistent effort, and giving one's absolute best. Stackhouse recalled a core memory of Dylan during band camp, when he was informed that he had a solo in the drum line. Dylan was overjoyed and could not contain his excitement, which inspired his bandmates to support one another as they dealt with the devastating news of his passing. Dylan's bass drum and uniform was set up as a memorial display to honor him and his family. 14-year-old Ethan Candy was the second son of the Candy family. He was a 9th grade student at Mustang North Middle School, and everyone in school knew him as an active, athletic young boy who was good at baseball. Ethan's coach, TJ Armstrong, said he was a very energetic and committed player who had a natural talent for the game and always played with so much enthusiasm and intensity. He said Ethan had an inspiring spirit and a smile that could uplift people's mood. TJ Armstrong was quite fond of Ethan, as he was best friends with his own son, and he believed Ethan brought out the best in his son. TJ would often affectionately call Ethan Sweet Candyman. Cooper Armstrong and Wyatt Livy, Ethan's closest friends, as well as his other friends, have struggled to come to terms with the loss of Ethan. A memorial bench is being established at the Mustang Youth Sports Complex to commemorate his presence in their lives and on the team. Lucas Candy was the youngest victim of the murders. He was a 12-year-old student at Meadowbrook Intermediate. He was often seen playing with the other young children during Ethan's soccer practice. Lucas was a lively, intelligent child, full of energy. He will be remembered as a bright, cheerful kid who enjoyed playing outside and making new friends. One of the saddest aspects of this tragic story is that the youngest child and sole survivor of the Candy family will have to grow up knowing that his entire family was murdered by his father. At 10 years old, he is already facing a future where he will have to navigate life without his immediate family. No father, no mother, no siblings. In a single night, his entire life was turned upside down, and those he called family are no more. He may grow up seeking closure for what happened, but sadly, he may never find the answers he seeks. This is a burden too heavy to be placed on a 10-year-old child with his entire future ahead of him. He has been placed in the care of extended family members, and people in the community are coming together to show him as much support as possible to help him deal with this difficult reality. Social workers have been assigned to work closely with the family to make sure he receives every necessary emotional and psychological support. A GoFundMe has been set up for him, and people have been encouraged to give as much as they can to assist with his upkeep, education, and future needs. The support that has been received so far from the community has been very heartwarming and overwhelming, proving to the only surviving Candy son and their other family members that they are not alone in these painful times. No one ever saw this coming. This is one reason why the news is so shocking to those who knew the family. At the local station KF, Jonathan's family released a statement where they expressed how truly confused and devastated they were. They said they have so many questions they won't ever have answers to. One of Candy's family neighbors, 68-year-old Michael Burham, said that it's hard for him to believe that his neighbors are no more and that he already misses them. Another neighbor, Brian Graham, mentioned how handy and helpful Jonathan was around the neighborhood. TJ Armstrong, Ethan's coach, said he chose to remember Jonathan Candy as the great person he had always known him to be, someone who was always grateful and gave hugs. Rhonda Armstrong, TJ's wife, had known the Candy family for over 3 years. She said that whenever she went to their house or they came over, she could never stop smiling and laughing. They had the ability to make her forget about her bad day at work or her life struggles the moment she saw their smiles. Rhonda also mentioned that Lindsay was always at Ethan's baseball games, cheering the loudest. As they played the games, everyone who knew them saw them as a kind, sweet, and happy family, which made the idea of what happened to them even harder to believe. Investigators are trying to do a thorough search to find clues about the events that led up to Jonathan's drastic actions. They are examining his interactions with friends and family to identify any possibility of a poor mental state. However, since there have been no previous indications of poor mental health, it has been particularly challenging to determine a clear motive behind his actions. However, authorities are using this incident as an opportunity to inform people about the importance of seeking help for any mental health issues. They emphasize the need to break down the stigma associated with seeking help. Jonathan Candy's case further demonstrates how those who appear happy and well on the outside could be dealing with deep inner trauma. Everyone is going through something, so we need to learn to be compassionate with the people we meet and take the time to connect and talk to our family and friends to ensure there is no buildup of negative emotions. Authorities have offered to help people who might be struggling to process their emotions or the news of Candy's family's death by providing them access to support groups and counseling services. This situation seems like an absolute nightmare that everyone wishes they could wake up from. The Candy family was loved by many and will forever be cherished in the hearts of their loved ones. As family and friends grieve the deaths of John, Jonathan, Lindsay, Dylan, Ethan, and Lucas Candy, they also recognize that the priority at a time like this is to ensure that the surviving member of the Candy family receives as much support and love as possible. Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you. The case of Georgina Simons. Georgina, an effervescent and determined escort, inhabited a world steeped in affluence and grandeur. Yet, beneath the veneer of sophistication and splendor, lurked a labyrinth of falsehoods and manipulation, ultimately leading to her premature demise. She was always fascinated with her appearance, and this preoccupation intensified over time. Seeking more space for their family, Georgina, Pete, and Emily found a small terraced house and moved in, enjoying a steady income and financial security. Money was not a concern for them. Pete found success working in the electric vehicle industry, while Georgina, feeling unsatisfied with her 9-to-5 job in the loan industry, sought alternative career paths. She confided in her friends, expressing her belief that the traditional 9-to-5 workday was not a good fit for her. Eventually, Georgina began supplementing her income by working as a burlesque dancer in a bar and later for an escort service. Both roles appealed to her, due to the attention they provided. However, it was during her tenure at the agency that her life took a significant turn. In May 2012, at the age of 20, Georgina crossed paths with Peter Morgan, then 49, a well-to-do real estate developer who lived near where she resided. Peter led a life of affluence, happily married to Helen, and a devoted father to their 2 children. His wealth originated from a multi-million-pound property portfolio, which notably included a stately windmill situated on a sprawling 300-acre estate that he shared with his parents and brother. Peter's childhood was marked by early exposure to farming equipment and machinery. By the age of 10, he had become adept at operating tractors and motorcycles. Opting out of formal education, he remained within the family business until the age of 34, indulging in a lifestyle where money was of little concern. Peter acknowledged a singular lapse in judgment, an encounter with a sex worker in Amsterdam, but otherwise maintained his dedication to his marriage. However, a perceived midlife crisis in his 40s led him to use technology such as smartphones to engage with sex workers through escort agencies. In his own words, Peter appreciated the transactional nature of his encounters, describing the appeal of being able to have sex, shake hands, and leave. However, everything shifted when he crossed paths with Georgina. She stood out from the others, unexpectedly captivating Peter's heart. Before Georgina, Peter had been frequently visiting different sex workers, with the encounters becoming weekly over time. While overseeing the renovation of a lighthouse for his real estate ventures, Peter showered Georgina with lavish gifts, including a Range Rover worth over $112,000 and an $11,000 shopping spree. He even paid her $1,000 for a single night together. Georgina enjoyed the attention and luxurious lifestyle, but exclusivity in her relationship with Pete remained elusive. She continued to see other clients while maintaining a romantic relationship with Pete. Unlike her arrangement with Peter Morgan, he harbored deep resentment towards Georgina's involvement with other individuals, despite their lack of romantic commitment. By 2015, he had persuaded Georgina to work exclusively as his personal escort, providing her with monthly payments ranging from $7,000 to $10,000. During this time, Peter was overseeing the renovation of his Grade 2 listed castle, including Castle Bungalow, a cottage on its grounds where Georgina relocated as part of their arrangement. She resided in the cottage over time. Peter confided in Georgina about his emotions and aspirations for the future. He decided to end his 22-year marriage to Helen, ensuring her financial stability while allowing Georgina to retain occupancy of the cottage. This turn of events left Pete's former partner and father of their daughter devastated, feeling as though he had lost the woman he loved. In August 2015, the couple embarked on a trip to Africa, yet Pete couldn't shake the feeling of Georgina slipping away from him. The thought of her being with other men, particularly someone as affluent as Peter Morgan, plunged him into a deep depression. Despite understanding Peter's ability to provide Georgina with a lavish lifestyle that made a strong impression on her, Pete felt powerless in comparison to Peter's wealth. Pete's mother, Lynn, reflected on this time, noting that at this point, Pete was happy to be with her, and he earned enough money for them both to have a good life and do what they wanted. She thought he put up with a lot, as she never knew anything else was going on. Morgan occupied a significant place in his life. He was constantly on his mind, and the feelings were intensifying within him. However, Pete cared too much about his mother to talk about these issues. On November 15, 2015, Pete Deem vanished following a heated argument with Georgina regarding text messages. Tragically, he was later discovered deceased by hanging in a wooded area. 2 days later, Alexi Butcher, a friend of Georgina's, succinctly summed up the situation. Rich Pete was completely smitten. He loved and cherished her, envisioning a future together. However, it seemed Georgina was responsible for Pete's death, making him feel culpable and asserting that it was entirely his fault. Tensions between Georgina and Peter Morgan escalated further after Pete's funeral in December 2015, when Georgina began dating Tom Ballinger, a friend of Pete's. Enraged, Peter started taking Georgina's phone to read her texts. He had also planted a listening device disguised as a white plug adapter in the cottage, making a total of 514 calls to it, allowing him to eavesdrop on every one of her phone conversations. One night in January 2016, Peter overheard a conversation in the bugged cottage that shook him to the core. Georgina was confiding in Tom Ballinger about her scheme to blackmail Peter into relinquishing the cottage. She disclosed her intention to relocate to London, where she could pursue her escorting career and significantly increase her earnings from upscale clients. Upon hearing this, Peter's heart sank, grappling with the realization that Georgina might not be committed to their relationship. She issued dire threats of exposing damaging information about him to the public, convinced she could ruin him. Georgina alleged that Peter concealed $50,000 in cash at home to evade taxes and was involved in constructing buildings that failed to meet code standards. Furthermore, she claimed to possess evidence on her phone indicating that Peter engaged with sex workers while still married to his wife. After 3 years of dating Georgina, Peter was aware of the explicit photographs and videos documenting their participation in group sexual activities, as well as intimate moments in the marital bed at his residence. He also knew that Georgina had successfully blackmailed at least 3 of her former clients. The realization that Georgina posed a serious threat to his reputation and livelihood left Peter with no choice but to consider extreme actions to protect himself. Fearing the catastrophic consequences of Georgina's blackmailing tactics, Peter considered eliminating her as a solution. He carefully planned this by meticulously creating a detailed list of necessary items using the Notes app on his iPhone. On January 12, 2016, Alexei, a friend of Georgina's, contacted the Welsh authorities. Later that same day, Alexei and Georgina made plans for a playdate for their daughters. However, Georgina failed to arrive to pick up her child from school, as arranged. When the police arrived at the cottage, both Alexei and Georgina's mother were present along with Peter. Peter informed the officers that Georgina had been struggling recently, turning to alcohol and drugs to cope with the grief of losing her father and ex-boyfriend Pete. He expressed concern that Georgina may have harmed herself, speculating that she could be in the woods behind the home. Despite a search of the area, Georgina was not found. Due to her mental state, authorities classified Georgina as a high-risk missing person. In the end, Peter admitted to the police that he had intervened and taken Georgina's phone from her, fearing she intended to use it to arrange a drug transaction. Furthermore, information gathered from Georgina's family and friends revealed that Peter was deeply infatuated with her, whereas she viewed their relationship solely as a business arrangement. Alexei informed the authorities that Georgina had decided to terminate her association with Peter and was looking forward to the future. Peter was brought in for questioning after the police located the phone. After prolonged interrogation, he eventually confessed to strangling Georgina and burying her body on the property. Law enforcement officers found Georgina's remains concealed beneath farm machinery, bound with rope and with an orange string tied around her neck, indicating she had been strangled. Georgina's handbag, vehicle, and house keys were discovered discarded in the trash, along with her high heels. Additionally, the police uncovered Peter's listening device, which he claimed he had installed to ensure Georgina's safety. However, call logs for Peter revealed that the listening device had been utilized 514 times between 2015 and 2016. Ultimately, Peter justified his purchase of the listening device by claiming he believed Georgina was exploiting him. He alleged that he had overheard Georgina discussing plans to blackmail him into surrendering the cottage. Peter carefully compiled a shopping list on his phone as a reminder of the items he needed to purchase, which included a polytarp, a handle, snips, string, tape, gloves, a plug, and a bag, tools later used in Georgina's murder. Furthermore, The police obtained footage from the farm's security system that captured Peter's arrival and exit from the vehicle, as well as the concealment of Georgina's body. The authorities speculated that Peter was unaware that his wife had installed the cameras after his departure on January 14, 2016. Peter was formally charged with murder, and his trial began on November 28, 2016. During the trial, he pleaded not guilty. The prosecution argued that Peter's obsession with Georgina led him to meticulously plan and carry out her murder. In contrast, Peter's defense asserted that his Asperger's disorder impaired his ability to fully comprehend the consequences of his actions, which could mitigate his culpability. Despite testimony from 2 doctors, the prosecution's expert disagreed with this assessment. Ultimately, the jury found Peter guilty of murder on December 21st, and he received a life sentence with the possibility of parole after 25 years. In October 2017, Peter filed an appeal against his conviction and imprisonment. However, the appeal was dismissed in March 2018. The unexpected death of Georgina deeply affected her family and friends, plunging them into deep grief. Her vibrant personality, now a treasured recollection, stands as a poignant reminder of a life cut short by this tragic event. The community came together in a display of unity, offering sincere support to Georgina's family and friends as they grappled with their sorrow. Their steadfast presence served as a powerful testament to the resilience that can be found in the collective strength of a community facing hardship. Though Georgina's life was tragically short-lived, her legacy continues to live on in the hearts of those who cherished her. May her memory inspire others to savor every moment and appreciate the preciousness of life. Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you, the case of Angela Craig. 46-year-old James Craig and 43-year-old Angela Craig were known as a perfect couple, famous for their happy marriage and lovely family. They often posted on social media about their life with their 6 children, enjoying activities like camping, fishing, and snowboarding. However, beneath this facade, their relationship had hidden complexities and struggles. James had a gambling addiction that caused financial problems as he continued to lose money with each bet. Despite his efforts to change his luck, he only ended up deeper in debt. Questionable business decisions and failed ventures in cryptocurrency also contributed to his financial troubles. In a last-ditch effort to turn around his luck, he went to Las Vegas and spent $2,000. Angela confided in her sister, Tony, about James's financial issues, which had nearly destroyed his dental practice. Angela had to step in to help manage the practice when James could not afford additional staff. Their marriage suffered from James's infidelity, and despite Angela's attempts to leave, she felt trapped by his charismatic personality. The darkest chapter in this story was when James drugged Angela about 5 or 6 years ago. He admitted that he did it to stop her from stopping him from trying to end his own life. This horrible incident became important later in the investigation because of some revealing text messages shown in the video. Angela's recent trip to visit her sister in Utah from March 1st to March 5th showed a completely different side of her. When she came back home, she seemed healthy and positive thanks to her regular exercise routine and didn't have any complaints. On March 6th, Angela's husband prepared her usual protein shake for their daily workout, a routine they both followed consistently. Unbeknownst to her, while she was away visiting her sister, James had been researching deadly poisons online and had received a delivery of arsenic on March 4th. He secretly added this dangerous substance to her protein shake, which caused her to experience dizziness and weakness upon consuming it. Angela sought help at Parker Adventist Hospital and was released the same day, oblivious to the grim reality. Her family assumed her symptoms were just another bout of routine sinus infections, unaware of the sinister truth. On March 9th, she was readmitted to the hospital as her symptoms worsened, leaving the doctors perplexed by the entire situation. James maintained contact with their close friends, Ryan and Michelle Redfern. Ryan, not just a friend, but also a reliable business associate, had supported James through financial difficulties to safeguard their dental practice. Michelle, drawing on her nursing expertise, frequently inquired about Angela's diagnosis, aiming to comprehend her condition better and identify any potential medical oversights. Initially, James disregarded Michelle's worries, asserting they had adequate assistance. Nevertheless, Michelle's persistent monitoring of Angela prompted her to closely track Angela's progress through messages. James fulfilled his role as a caring spouse, providing updates when requested, even though his messages occasionally contained questionable content and poorly timed jokes. Simultaneously, he exchanged messages with his wife at the hospital, expressing affection while also maintaining an inappropriate sense of humor. In the meantime, he was living a double life, spending time with his secret lover, Karen Kane, a married orthodontist from Marble Falls in Texas. He had made arrangements for Karen to travel to Colorado from March 8th to March 10th, coinciding with the time his wife was in the hospital, all part of a sinister plan taking shape. This dark scheme was not a one-time event. The orthodontist was set to visit James for a second time from March 16th to 20th, with a flight ticket already bought on March 4th. It seemed that this new love was what drove James to want to get rid of his wife. However, the lover seemed unaware of James's evil actions, even though she knew Angela was unwell and hospitalized. Instead of showing genuine concern and support for his sick wife, James sent poorly timed messages filled with desires rather than empathy. Angela, determined to get better, ignored his advances and focused on her health. Angela's situation worsened when she was discharged on March 14th, only to be readmitted on March 15th at University Hospital in Colorado, accompanied by her brother Mark. Meanwhile, Ryan received a significant call from the dental office, revealing the hidden truth. This information disclosed the source of Angela's sudden illness, which she had already suspected. When confronted by Angela, James denied drugging her at the dental office, acknowledging the sensitivity of the situation. Caitlin, the office manager, remembered a package from James that she was told not to open. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together. The discovery happened unexpectedly when another employee accidentally opened the package that was meant to be untouched. Caitlin later found it, forgot it belonged to James, and looked inside. She found a biohazard-labeled canister with potassium cyanide written on it. Recognizing it was James's, she sealed it and gave it back to him, but he seemed unaware of what had happened. Angela's symptoms perfectly aligned with the effects of potassium cyanide ingestion, including vomiting, low blood pressure, and nausea. Suspicion grew like a dark cloud, pointing squarely at James as the prime suspect in a sinister poisoning plot. Caitlin had also remembered their past conversations and put together an important piece of information. James had made a protein shake for Angela on the day she got sick. This discovery made Caitlin even more suspicious of James. Adding to the mystery were James's strange actions, like staying late at work on days off when there were no patients, and going into exam room 9 at the end of the hallway to use a different computer in the dark, instead of his usual one in his office. The lies were catching up to James, making Caitlin increasingly worried. At that time, Caitlin didn't think much about it. James had also told her about Angela's accusations of poisoning, which greatly bothered her. When Caitlin shared her worries with her colleague Jacqueline, things started to happen. Jacqueline called and quickly told Ryan about the disturbing news. Ryan, very worried, informed a nurse about the suspicion that Angela might have been poisoned by her husband using potassium cyanide. Following the rules, the nurse contacted the police, starting an important investigation. Tragically, Angela had been declared brain dead at this point. James received the devastating news that she would be taken off life support. Ryan and Michelle, who were now in the same car, began discussing the unfolding drama. The sinister plot had reached a critical point, and the truth was starting to come out. During a tense and chilling moment, James called Ryan using the car's Bluetooth speaker, ensuring they both heard every word. James confronted Ryan, as he was aware that troubling information had come from him. Ryan confessed to knowing about the secret package. James tried to come up with excuses, saying it was an engagement ring for Angela, but Ryan saw through the lies, stating he knew it was potassium cyanide, and asked for an explanation. Finally, James confessed that the substance he obtained was potassium cyanide. However, he provided a disturbing account. He alleged that Angela had asked him to obtain the substance because she had been struggling with suicidal thoughts since he had requested a divorce in December 2022. James claimed he ordered the poison for her, believing it was a dangerous game of brinksmanship, describing the situation as a game of chicken, not realizing she would actually consume it. Ryan urged James to stop talking and instead get a lawyer, but the investigation had already begun. The detective reached out to Child Protective Services caseworker Sydney Romero, who was deeply concerned about James's statements regarding Angela's supposed suicidal tendencies. Sydney was extremely doubtful about James's allegations, which defied reality. James claimed that Angela had intentionally taken too many opioids on multiple occasions, and that he had revived her single-handedly, without reporting these incidents or seeking medical assistance. This sounded even more suspicious because their children, who lived with them, were completely unaware of these supposed events. Sydney had a clear understanding of the family dynamics, having previously met with James and the kids. The fact that none of these incidents had been mentioned earlier raised serious questions. Who was deceiving others, and who was manipulating them? As the truth slowly emerged, the situation was becoming increasingly dire. James was in a desperate situation, and he knew it, so he looked for someone to help him. On March 16th, he sent Ryan a series of text messages, hoping to get him on his side. In the messages, James tried to manipulate Ryan by saying certain things, but fortunately, it didn't work. James was getting more and more desperate, and in his messages, he even tried to blame Ryan for the trouble his kids were in. They couldn't go back home because the police were waiting for them at the door. The police, armed with a search warrant, demanded that James hand over his phone, Angela's phone, his wallet, and his laptop, along with their passcodes. He reluctantly complied, informing them that his laptop was actually at the dental office. Before returning his personal items, the police took photographs of his credit cards, ID, and driver's license. The search of James's residence resulted in the police confiscating several items deemed relevant to the case. Among the seized items were various protein powders, workout-style shakers, a computer tablet, 2 unmarked bags containing unidentified white powdery substances, and a water bottle located on the exercise bike in the main bedroom area. Despite their efforts, the police were unable to find a hard drive that could have held surveillance data from the security cameras. The detectives then went to James's workplace, where they obtained his laptop and its password. Inside a small hand vacuum, they found an unidentified white substance, and they carefully collected a sample of it as evidence. Additionally, they retrieved a hard drive from exam room 9 that James had previously used. During their in-depth investigation, they gained access to Angela's phone and confirmed her conversations with James. They found his contact information, listed as the boy, with a picture of the two of them, and his phone number matched the one provided by Ryan and Michelle. However, the most disturbing find came when they connected the hard drive to a television, revealing James's alarming Google search history. This included a search for a new email account to research topics such as the lethal dose of pure arsenic needed to kill a human, which led to a website detailing the amounts required. Furthermore, they discovered a search related to whether arsenic is detectable in an autopsy, which originated from the Carlson Company. A review of James's YouTube search history uncovered a series of unsettling titles, including Top 5 Undetectable Poisons That Show No Signs of Foul Play, How to Make Poison, and Top 10 Deadliest Plants That Can Kill You. As detectives examined his emails, they found emails between him and Cassie Rodriguez, who worked at Midland Scientific, the same company where he had bought potassium cyanide. In the emails, James kept asking about the delay in his order, saying he needed it for medical purposes and providing his credentials, which the company finally accepted. He was getting increasingly agitated as he urgently wanted the dangerous substance to speed up his sinister plan. In a stunning revelation, the investigation revealed that James had been poisoning Angela even while she was in the hospital, all the while pretending to care for her. An email from his lover hinted that he had shared a disturbing secret about Angela's condition with her. In the email, the lover expressed deep sympathy and consoled James, assuming Angela's condition was due to natural causes. She acknowledged the enormous difficulty James must be facing and offered to be present for him, but refused to pretend their relationship was platonic when they both knew it was more than that. Angela tragically passed away on March 18, 2023, leaving behind 6 children. Suspicions surrounding her death grew stronger when her husband James declined an autopsy, a decision that cast further doubt on his innocence. One would expect a grieving and innocent husband to want to uncover the mysterious circumstances surrounding his wife's death. However, James' actions only fueled the growing suspicions. The very next morning, he was arrested and charged with Angela Craig's murder in the first degree. The shocking climax to this dark tale was now in full view. On March 23, 2023, James made a solemn entrance into the courtroom. He appeared with his head lowered, hands in cuffs, and ankles restrained, clad in the unmistakable orange jumpsuit of the Arapahoe County Detention Center. His gaze avoided the eyes of family and friends present, and he entered a plea of not guilty. As of October 2023, James Craig made an appearance in Arapahoe County Court, where he maintained his not guilty plea. His trial has been scheduled for April 19, 2024, and is expected to last 3 weeks, taking place in the spring of 2024. Angela's obituary celebrated her as a devoted, committed, and loving individual, showing unwavering loyalty to her children, family, and friends. Remarkably, she remained loyal even to the man who had betrayed their love and ultimately led to her tragic end. Hello friends, welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you, the case of the Hawks couple. Thomas and Jackie Hawks set out on a journey that would lead them straight into the grasp of tragedy. Unaware, they made the decision to sell their prized possession, their luxurious yacht, which would plunge them into a dark abyss. Imagine the sun glistening on the calm waters, a final voyage on their treasured vessel, and a potential buyer about to finalize the deal. As the sails billowed in the wind and the waves murmured their secrets, the Hawks ventured into the unknown, oblivious that this very journey would become their eternal shroud. Thomas Hawks and his brother Jim Hawks grew up on a farm in the heart of California. They shared a passion for surfing the rolling waves and navigating the vast open sea. However, life's twists and turns saw Thomas answering the call of duty, trading the embrace of the ocean and joining the military. He even ventured into the harsh battlegrounds of the Vietnam War, leaving his mark as a veteran. Despite this, his resilience never wavered, and he transitioned into the realm of justice, becoming a dedicated probation officer. Meanwhile, Jim's path led him into the uniform of a police officer, eventually rising to the esteemed position of police chief. Service and duty ran deep in their veins. Thomas was a dedicated bodybuilder. He had sculpted his body, a testament to his unwavering commitment to physical strength. His impressive physique was a symbol of his indomitable will. Life took its course, and Thomas married, bringing 2 sons, Ryan and Matthew, into the world. However, like the changing tides, the journey of their relationship faced unexpected turns, and they ultimately ended up divorcing. Thomas found himself in Prescott, Arizona, starting a new chapter in his life. His sons followed, drawn to their father in this new land. Then, in an unexpected but positive twist of fate, Thomas crossed paths with Jackie. They fell in love, and their hearts entwined, sparking a love that burned brighter than the Arizona sun. However, Jackie carried scars not of the heart, but of life's cruelty, as a past accident had left her unable to bear children of her own. Yet, her love knew no bounds, as she embraced Thomas's sons as her own flesh and blood. This couple had always faced life's demands, with unwavering determination. They toiled ceaselessly, their dreams woven into their hearts. Their aspiration to own a vessel, a testament to their hard-earned rewards, became a reality as they bought themselves a 55-foot yacht. They named it Well-Deserved, a name their loved ones deemed as a fitting and well-deserved reward for their unyielding work ethic. They took the vessel to the next level by equipping it with the most advanced technology. With retirement's golden years ahead, Thomas and Jackie set sail along the picturesque West Coast. Mexico's exotic shores, California's rugged coastline, and Catalina Island's enchanting beauty became their playground for the following 2 years. They were without a doubt living the dream they had so ardently envisioned. Life being an ever-evolving story, new chapters beckoned. One of Thomas's sons began a family of his own, with the promise of a grandchild on the horizon. Anticipation filled their hearts, the prospect of becoming grandparents, a beacon of joy. Thomas and Jackie then considered the idea of returning to Arizona to be close to their expanding family, and so they made the difficult decision to part with their beloved boat. They decided to sell it in Newport Beach, California, little knowing that this decision would thrust them into the maze of fate, leading to a tragedy they could never have anticipated. The dreams they had so faithfully pursued would take an unexpected and heart-rending turn. In November 2004, they listed their well-deserved yacht for sale at $435,000 through an advertisement in a magazine, choosing to bypass the conventional broker route to save on hefty commissions. With the high price tag for their beloved yacht, which was valued near $500,000, they were confident that the vessel's well-maintained condition would attract eager buyers. But fate had other plans. The first person who responded to their advertisement was not who they had expected. The mysterious individual who reached out was named Skylar Dillion, and what happened next exceeded their expectations. Initially, they were doubtful when they met Dillion. Thomas, a former probation officer, couldn't help but wonder how someone so young had acquired so much wealth. Skylar's explanation, which included a previous career as a child actor, being part of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers cast, and appearing in commercials, had made him rich. Skylar Dillion made a great offer, a full cash offer, sweetened with an additional $15,000 for some personal items he wants to keep on the boat. To further reduce the Hawks' hesitation, he arrived at the meeting with his pregnant wife, Jennifer Henderson, and their young child. Their seemingly happy family had an effect, slowly melting away the Hawks' worries as trust gradually grew. However, under their friendly exterior, Skylar and Jennifer were hiding a treacherous deceit that would lead to serious consequences. The Hawks were unaware of this, as they had developed a strong trust in Dillion. The sea trial, a normal part of Heavy Blanket, an unsettling message disrupted the peace. Jackie called with troubling news that made Ford shiver. The Hawks were on a sea trial, which seemed routine, but something felt off. The buyer and his group had kept them out on the water longer than expected, leading to uncertainty. The Hawks promised to contact once they returned, and this was the last anyone heard from them. When the sun rose again, the yacht had returned to Newport Beach, but the couple was nowhere to be found. A puzzling mystery unfolded, as they seemed to have disappeared without a trace. Days passed with no word to their loved ones, their phones silent. To add to the mystery, Jackie's SUV was also missing, leading some to wonder if they had gone on a sudden road trip to enjoy their recent financial success, choosing to disconnect from the world as they celebrated. But the dark reality became clear. The Hawks were not on vacation. Something more sinister had happened to them, and it was only later that they realized this. A week passed, and the unusual silence from the Hawks sparked many questions and concerns. Their loved ones felt the weight of their absence, with a fear that something was wrong. The family turned to Carter Ford in desperation, asking him to go out to the well and investigate. As Ford boarded the boat, he felt a deep sense of concern. Everything seemed to be in disarray, with a lone white towel hanging ominously from one of the portholes. The family was disturbed by the strange scene and immediately took action by filing a missing persons report. Detectives were called to the scene. They proceeded cautiously, breaking the lock on the cabin door and entering. Inside the boat, there were no signs of violence, but a sinister presence seemed to be lurking in the shadows. Their attention was drawn to a white towel stained with fresh ink, hidden between the bed and the wall. It made them stop and think, prompting disturbing questions. A receipt nearby revealed a troubling list of items: bleach, cleaning supplies, heavy-duty trash bags, and Tums, an antacid. The detectives began to connect the pieces of this dark puzzle. The cleaning supplies seemed well suited for a murder, with the trash bags to dispose of evidence, bleach to clean away any traces, and Tums possibly used to calm a stomach unsettled by the horrific acts. The boat had secrets that scared everyone who entered. Investigators were determined to find out the truth about the yacht's buyers, Skylar and Jennifer. A surveillance team was quickly put together to follow them closely. Undercover officers followed the Dillians, observing them living their daily lives, seemingly unaffected by suspicion. They were regular volunteers at a local church, and Jennifer's work as a hairdresser presented no unusual facets. To the world, they appeared utterly ordinary, masking their true nature with chilling adeptness. As detectives delved deeper into their backgrounds, a grim portrait emerged. Skylar Dillian's history bore the stain of a prior conviction for burglary, landing him on probation. Financial scrutiny revealed that the couple was drowning in a staggering $87,000 worth of debt, a dire financial abyss. The investigators were puzzled by a question: how did the couple manage to buy a yacht when they were struggling financially? After looking into Skylar's claims of fame on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, they found out he was just an uncredited extra in a few episodes. To add to the mystery, the couple was living in Jennifer's parents' garage. Their desire to own a yacht didn't match their financial situation, leaving the detectives confused. The more they investigated, the more confusing the situation became. Dillian was being questioned intensely, but he stuck to his story that he had bought the yacht legally. Surprisingly, he admitted that the money came from selling drugs. Things got even more intense when he revealed that he had handed over a briefcase full of cleaned money from Mexico, mostly in $100 bills, to Tom. Interestingly, Skylar said that the Hawks had asked him to help with setting up a bank account in Mexico, so they could start a new life there. He also mentioned that Tom and Jackie had given him power of attorney, allowing him to control their money and transfer it to Mexico. To strengthen his story, Skylar showed what seemed to be a real power of attorney document with signatures that looked real. Despite denying any role in their disappearance and suggesting the couple may have gone to Mexico, doubts remained. Cell phone records showed the Hawks' phones were near the Mexican border the day after the sea trial with Skylar. Frustrated detectives went back to square one and refocused on the Hawks family, prioritizing the safety of the couple above all else. They sought answers by going to the national news, where a family member appeared on camera asking for help in finding the missing couple and their car. The mystery only grew deeper, capturing the world's attention with its twists and turns. An American citizen in Mexico called in, sparking action in the investigation. He had seen the car they were looking for on the news, and it was right in front of him. Authorities went to a house near Ensenada in Mexico and found the Hawks' car. Despite the Hawks being missing for over a month and the fear of something bad happening, there was hope that this could be them. There was a glimmer of optimism. Maybe this was the breakthrough they needed. A Mexican federal agent knocked on the door, leading the way. The names Skylar Dillian and Jennifer came up in the Spanish conversation. The man at the door had a chilling connection. He was an old surfing buddy of Skylar. He casually mentioned that Skylar had given him the car, and then Jennifer, his pregnant wife, had driven him back to the US. The detectives quickly collected samples from inside the car and found Skylar's DNA on a heater knob, a significant piece of evidence. This discovery led to suspicions of foul play. The investigators believed that Skylar and Jennifer may have vital information or knowledge of the events, but concrete proof was still needed. A new development occurred when the detectives looked into a suspicious power of attorney. Theory that Tom and Jackie allowed strangers access to their accounts raised concerns. However, the notary, Kathleen Harris, supported Skylar's story, claiming she had witnessed the Hawks signing the papers and confirming their identities with fingerprints. While this aligned with Skylar's account, the detectives decided to investigate further. They asked Harris to describe Tom and Jackie Hawks. While she accurately described Tom, her portrayal of Jackie raised suspicion. She described Jackie as having brown curly hair, when in reality, she had chopped her long curly locks and had a spiked blonde hairstyle. Was this confusion or a sinister cover-up? The power of attorney had fingerprints that matched perfectly and seemed to have legitimate signatures. Despite this, there was still a sense of worry. The case was given to the FBI to ease doubts, and the world's best handwriting analysts were brought in. Their discoveries were surprising. Tom's signature was genuine, as was Jackie's. However, there was an oddity in Jackie's signature that left investigators puzzled and struggling to solve the mystery. Armed with the unsettling revelation, the investigators received a tip that Skylar was going to flee. He had asked his probation officer for permission to leave the country, which helped the quick-thinking detectives quickly catch him for money laundering, the crime he had confessed to earlier. Investigators arrived at the garage apartment where Jennifer's parents resided and found a collection of personal items belonging to Tom and Jackie, such as their camera and driver's licenses. Upon inspecting Jackie's driver's license photo, they were surprised to see a striking resemblance to the notary's description, raising further suspicions about her involvement and the legitimacy of her actions. The investigation took a darker turn, shedding light on the unsettling idea that more people may be involved in this mysterious disappearance than previously thought. As the lies began to unravel, it exposed an intricate web of mysteries and secrets waiting to be revealed. In the garage, investigators found a business card belonging to an LAPD detective who worked with Interpol. They contacted the Interpol agent to discuss their investigation into Skylar's possible involvement in the Hawks' disappearance. The Interpol agent then shared that he had encountered Skylar a year earlier during a murder investigation in Mexico involving an American citizen. This connection raised the possibility that Skylar might have been involved in both cases. The main challenge was to find evidence. Detectives found something strange on the yacht. In photos, it had 2 anchors, but in reality, only one. Their suspicions grew as they realized the discrepancy. A chilling theory started to form. Detectives linked anchor absence on yacht to couple's disappearance, due to Skylar's ruse concealing sinister plot to steal prized possession. Needed undeniable proof. The net was tightening. Jennifer's actions revealed her involvement in the plot. Her effort to drain Hawks' account was evidence of her awareness of the situation, despite not being on the boat. But at a crucial moment, detectives identified a name in the power of attorney papers, a name that would shift the course in solving this puzzling case. The name belonged to a man who had witnessed the significant transaction, a man named Alonso. Alonso, who was only 19 at the time, resided with his parents and worked as a prison guard. A bond had developed between him and Dillian, while the latter was in prison for theft. Skylar had convinced Alonso to accompany him to the meetings. He was the slim man who had gone with him on the sea trial. Offering leniency in his punishment, they made an agreement with Alonso, pushing him to share his perspective and expose the chilling truth about the Hawks' destiny. As the tape recorder started playing, Alonzo began to tell a frightening story. He revealed details about a man named John Fitzgerald Kennedy, who was introduced as an accountant by Schuyler. However, Kennedy was not an ordinary man. He was actually a notorious gang member and former convict known as John F. Kennedy. Alonzo explained how they had planned a dangerous scheme that would bring disaster to the Hawks. Their evil plan involved kidnapping a couple and taking them out to sea to throw them overboard. The frightening story began when John F. Kennedy pretended to be seasick and went below deck. Thomas, concerned for him, went down to check on him and fell into their trap. Schuyler followed, and together they attacked Thomas. Amidst the chaos, Jackie asked worried questions. Alonzo grabbed her, used a taser to immobilize her, handcuffed her, and took her to another part of the boat. Both Thomas and Jackie found themselves helpless, with their eyes and mouths taped shut. In those harrowing moments, as Jackie struggled to scream through her gag with tears of desperation flowing, Thomas offered a small gesture of solace. Handcuffed together, he tenderly stroked her hand with his fingers, a silent attempt to comfort her in the face of the grim fate that awaited them in the merciless hands of their captors. The grim saga continued as they were taken into the kitchen area, where the power of attorney awaited their reluctant signatures. The chilling ultimatum hung in the air like a death knell: cooperate, and perhaps they would be spared, or resist, and death would be their fate. The boat steered into the haunting depths of the ocean near Catalina Island, a place once filled with cherished memories for Tom and Jackie. On the deck of the vessel, they were bound together with a rope, a ghastly prelude to the impending horror. Dillian then disengaged one of the anchors from the boat's bow as he dragged the chain along, the dreadful sound echoing in their ears. They had heard that sound countless times before, but this time, it signaled their inexorable doom. Jackie's pleas for her life were heartbreaking, as she yearned to see her grandchild and believed she was too young to die. Tom assured her they would be together as they faced the cruel reality, being cast overboard into the Pacific Ocean. They were pushed from their vessel, dragged down by the anchor, disappearing into the depths. Unfortunately, their bodies were never found, shrouding their fate in mystery. After completing their evil deed, Schuyler began a cruel mission to eliminate any evidence of the Hawks' presence. He collected their precious belongings, including photographs, and heartlessly threw them into the deep ocean, where their memories faded away, abandoned without any regret. With all traces of the couple gone, Dillian and John F. Kennedy tried to return to a sense of normalcy as they sailed back to Newport Harbor, relaxing and fishing as if the terrifying recent events were just a disturbing illusion. Justice caught up with Schuyler, Dillian, John F. Kennedy, and Alonzo McChain as they faced 2 counts of first-degree murder. Jennifer Henderson defended her husband's innocence while facing her own reckoning, as she too was charged with 2 counts of murder. Her involvement in the gruesome act was revealed, laying bare her complicity. The chilling murders were driven by a strong desire for money. Myron Gardner, an ex-convict and former gang member, played a key role in connecting Dillian with John F. Kennedy, despite not actively participating in the crime. Gardner faced charges of involuntary manslaughter for his part in these events. Justice was served when different juries found them all guilty. Jennifer Henderson was sentenced to 2 life terms in October 2007, without the chance of parole. John Fitzgerald Kennedy received a death sentence on May 1, 2009, and was placed on death row in San Quentin State Prison. Alonzo McChain testified against the others, pleaded guilty, and received a lighter sentence on June 15, 2009, 20 years and 4 months in prison, with the chance of parole in September 2021. In March 2009, Myron Gardner's life changed after spending 4 years in prison. He decided to plead guilty to being an accessory after the crime, which led to the dismissal of the murder charges against him. Meanwhile, Schuyler Dillian, also in jail, faced more accusations. He was said to have asked another inmate to carry out a dark plan against his own family members. Things took a darker turn when Dillian was also implicated in the murder of an American citizen named John Jarvie, who was killed in Mexico in 2003. Dillian's cousin and father, who were connected to the Jarvie murder, were considered crucial witnesses in both murder cases. On September 22nd, jury selection began for the trial of Skylar Dillian. Dillian was tried for the murders of Thomas and Jackie Hawkes, as well as John Jarvie. The verdict was given on April 10, 2009, with Dillian receiving a death sentence from Judge Frank Faisal in Orange County Superior Court. He was sent to death row at San Quentin State Prison. Before Skylar Dillian was sent to prison, a troubling discovery was made. While incarcerated on March 13, 2008, he performed a disturbing act by partially cutting his own male private part with a razor blade, as he wished to remove it. After receiving immediate medical attention, he was taken back to his cell the next day. In an interview, Dillian admitted that his reason for this extreme self-injury was a strong desire to transition to a woman. He had already changed his name from John Julius Jacobson to Skylar Dillian, choosing a gender-neutral name to represent his identity. Defense lawyers claimed that Dillian's need for money to pay for sex reassignment surgery was the hidden reason for the murders of the Hawks. However, it is important to understand that this motive does not justify the terrible crimes he committed. In 2019, Dillian's gender was legally changed to female, and she is now known as Skylar Preciosa Dillian. The Hawks family holds dear the lasting memory of Thomas and Jackie, always engraved in their hearts. These lively individuals, recognized for their adventurous nature, embodied goodness and genuineness. Their destiny took a harsh turn, and even though they have passed away, their spirits persist, shining a timeless light on our recollections. May they rest in eternal peace in paradise. Hello friends. Welcome to our channel. Today we're going to take a look at another horrible case with you. The case of Ricky Neve. After 28 years, DNA from the clothes worn by 6-year-old Ricky Neve on the day of his tragic death matched with James Watson, who was a teenager at the time and had managed to evade justice for so long. Despite his mother's harsh way of raising her children, she seemed burdened with remorse and guilt for her actions, driving her to seek justice for her son's murder. Ricky's sisters were also determined to unravel the mystery and bring the killer to justice. But what truly happened in the household where Ricky and his sisters were raised, and what events occurred on the day of Ricky's murder, allowing the perpetrator to escape the law's grasp for so long? Ricky Lee Harvey, also known as Ricky Neve, was born on March 4, 1988, in the city of Peterborough, located in the county of Cambridgeshire, in England, to Trevor Harvey and Ruth Ann Gregg. Ruth's life had been marked by turmoil from an early age, with her being placed in foster care at the mere age of 2. Her younger brother, who was born blind at the tender age of 1, had already been placed in foster care. She endured a challenging journey through various foster homes before returning to her parents' care, forever changed by the abuse and insults she suffered while she was under foster care. Her empathy and affection dwindled with time, which was an observation made and reported by her mother to the authorities, a struggle that the mother had been dealing with too for quite some time. Tragedy struck again when Ruth's parents took their own lives as a suicide pact later on, leaving her to face the world alone once again. At 16, she met Trevor Harvey, settled in Cambridgeshire, and gave birth to their first child, Rebecca Maria Harvey, in 1986. They had their second child, Ricky, 2 years later. Their happiness was short-lived, as Trevor and Ruth separated when Ricky was only 3, but Ruth met Dean Neve not long after. They married and welcomed their first daughter into the world and named her Rochelle Neve. The family later moved into the Welland estate in Peterborough in 1992. Ruth decided to change Ricky's surname to match her new husband's, and he was now known as Ricky Neve. Sometime later, they welcomed another daughter and named her Sheridan Neve. They lived in Red Mile Walk, which was a part of the Welland estate that was well known for its association with crime and drug use. Unfortunately, the family's new home was riddled with challenges, as Dean Neve was a notorious drug dealer, and Ruth had succumbed to addiction. She would even spend a lot on drugs, to a point of neglecting her children's basic needs. Ricky and his sisters often wandered the estate without proper care, food, or clothing, drawing concern from neighbors who bravely reported the situation to social services. Ricky was the one who took care of his siblings when they were starved, as he would nick something from the shops and bring it to feed his siblings. He loved being clean, so he also made sure they were clean by running a bath for them. Dean was rarely at home, and Ruth often blamed Ricky for this, claiming that he was always away since he hated his stepson. This made her start hating Ricky, as she would write to Dean during his prison stints how she had hurt him by punching him and burning him with matches, and how she even wanted to kill him. She hated him more as she claimed that he would always laugh at her. The neighbors, often seeing the children outside, had no idea what really happened in that house. Ruth tormented and degraded the innocent children, frequently burning them with cigarettes and hurling insults at them. At one point, she even wrote "idiot" on their foreheads and forbade them from removing it. She would force them to stand for long periods of time while she smacked them on the head. She sent them to buy her drugs even after starving them. An allegation surfaced that she had been seen dangling Ricky by his ankles over a bridge. On one occasion, she forced Ricky to swallow liquid soap, and as he struggled to breathe, he managed to say, "I love you, Mommy." She would strangle the daughters to unconsciousness and even beat them with a hairbrush to the point of breaking it. They were even locked naked in rooms full of urine. The children tried to get the attention of their neighbors, which was often in vain, as their cries were not heard by them. Ricky was placed on the at-risk register after Ruth warned the child services repeatedly that she would kill him. He was taken into short-term care to give the mother some time. However, his files were mismanaged. Ruth, despite the clear evidence of the burns, cuts, and bruises on the children, would get away with it through her false explanations and excuses of accidents, and even blaming Ricky for being clumsy on his part. After 28 years, DNA from the clothes worn by 6-year-old Ricky Neve on the day he died tragically matched that of James Watson, the teenage killer who had managed to evade justice for a long time. Despite her cruelty in raising her children, Ricky's mother seemed burdened with remorse and guilt for her unforgiving actions, which drove her to seek her son's killer. Ricky's sisters were also determined to unravel the puzzling mystery and bring the killer to justice. But what really happened in the household where Ricky and his sisters were raised? And what occurred on the day of Ricky's murder, allowing the perpetrator to escape the law's grasp for so long? On January of 1995, Ruth was suspected of murdering her own son during that very month. She faced charges of cruelty and neglect under the Children's Act and appeared at Peterborough Magistrates' Court, accused of cruelty towards Ricky and one of her other children. In May of 1995, Ruth was charged with the murder of her son and offenses of cruelty to him and 2 of his sisters. Her trial began the following year, in October 1996, at the Northampton Crown Court. Prosecutors told the jury that Ricky and his siblings were treated with cruelty and neglect, backed by witness statements. The prosecution concluded that Ricky was killed in a sacrifice by his mother, based on her numerous death threats to him. Ruth admitted to charges of neglect and cruelty, but denied any involvement in her son's murder. The case hinged on the testimony of a policeman who stated that he had not found the child's body during his search of the woods, where Ricky was eventually discovered on the night of his disappearance. The prosecution claimed the officer might have missed it in the dark. The jurors acquitted Ruth, convinced that she couldn't have moved Ricky's body since the police were with her at the said time. However, she was sentenced to 7 years in jail for the cruelty towards Ricky and his sisters, charges to which she had already confessed. Ruth was released in 2000, but the killer remained a mystery. In 2008, she met Gary Rogers, who married her. By then, Ricky's murder had become a cold case, and the police had given up. Rogers promised Ruth that he would give her all the support she needed to reopen the case and try to find the killer. In 2013, with the help of Cambridgeshire Times editor John Elworthy, they worked tirelessly to campaign for the reopening of the case, and eventually succeeded. Rogers secured the original files from Ruth's former solicitor, a collection of 13 boxes with 8 to 12 ring binders filled with papers, and diligently read through each one. They met Paul Fullwood, the head of the local major crime unit at the time, who listened to the evidence they had and saw the reviews that the police had done beforehand. He thought the original hypothesis of Ruth being the killer was fanciful at best, and the more he looked at it, the more he became convinced that they needed to investigate further. Mr. Fullwood organized a cold case investigation with a new team made up of staff not involved in the original investigation. With fresh perspective, determination, and what they deemed as a stroke of luck, new evidence that would help solve the crime was found in the forensic archives. The crucial evidence was a piece of sellotape used to collect fibers from Ricky's clothes. Advancements in DNA technology in recent years have played a crucial role in solving cold cases, bringing justice for victims whose killers were thought to have gotten away, and providing closure to family and friends. An unidentified DNA was found on Ricky's clothes, and forensic tests matched it to none other than James Watson. At the time of Ricky's death, Watson was only 13 and lived at Woodgate's Children's Home in Cambridgeshire, 20 miles away from Peterborough. He had moved there from foster care in March of 1994. On November 25, 1994, 3 days before Ricky's murder, Watson had asked his mother about a young child found dead in the woods. His mother, having no clue what he was talking about, brushed off the conversation, assuring him that nobody had heard of such a thing happening. Little did she know that he would be the one behind such an atrocity just 3 days later. Watson was questioned by the police after several witnesses claimed to have seen them together on that fateful day, but he vehemently denied it, stating he was nowhere near Ricky and that he only caught a glimpse of him. The mother also said nothing about the conversation they had just some days prior about the made-up scenario of the young child in the woods that would materialize in less than a week with an almost similar description to what had actually happened. The police did not further challenge him, perhaps due to ignorance or their preference for the idea of Ruth being the killer and not some disturbed teenager. They probably didn't know he was disturbed until later. Watson was, of course, searched for and arrested in April 2016 in connection with Ricky's murder. By then, he was already a serial offender with a criminal record that included stealing cars and an arson attack at a British Transport Police station back in 2008. Questioned by the new investigation team about his DNA ending up on Ricky's clothes, Watson changed the story he had initially given to the police. He now said that he might have lifted Ricky to help him see over a fence. This statement started getting him into further trouble. The police tested his claim and found footage from 1994, showing the estate being redeveloped. They discovered that the fence was not built when Ricky Neve was still there, as it was constructed after he was already murdered. The investigators were therefore able to prove that Watson was not only a fantasist, but also a huge liar. However, this was still not enough to secure his conviction, so they started to pull other pieces of evidence together. It was not long until evidence was found that he had inappropriately touched a 5-year-old child when he was around 11 or 12, and his ex-girlfriend had also complained about him strangling her during sex. 2 teachers also revealed how he had become obsessed with Ricky's murder case, showing an unnatural level of interest in it, and even photocopying the front page of the Peterborough Evening Telegraph, which covered the case. More disturbing behavior had also been noted at the children's home where he lived. including him pleasing himself over pictures of young boys in underwear. He also kept a dead pheasant in his room, and it was claimed that he had on one occasion killed a bird and spread its wings in a sinister reconstruction of Ricky's murder. After being released on police bail, he left the UK 3 months later in a motorhome with another bail hostel resident. He travelled to Rotterdam, then France, and crossed the Pyrenees into Portugal. From France, he had reached out to his sister, Claire Perna, admitting that he was in serious trouble and that he had made a massive mistake. The next time he called, he reiterated that he was in deeper trouble and urgently needed to return to the UK. He had shamelessly posted pictures of himself on social media, enjoying the beaches, bragging about how he got out of the country. Seeing the pictures of Watson abroad, which were extensively covered in the media, angered Ricky's family. They knew that since he had escaped the country, even after his passport had been taken, he was definitely guilty of the act. Watson was eventually rearrested near the British Embassy in Lisbon and extradited back to Britain. He was found guilty of murder by a majority of the Old Bailey jury. Previously, the court heard how Watson's sexual interest in younger boys was known to police, who had interviewed him over an allegation that he molested a 5-year-old back in 1993. The disturbing behavior was noted at Watson's children's home, and the prosecution claimed it was no coincidence that 3 days before the murder, Watson was the source of a bogus radio report about a 2-year-old boy being strangled. Immediately after Ricky's murder, in identical circumstances, Watson obsessed over newspaper coverage of the killing, copying front-page stories at school. The jurors heard that key evidence in the case against Watson included Ricky's last meal of Weetabix, taken in the morning, which fixed his time of death at around noon when he was seen playing with Watson. It meant that Ricky was killed shortly after heading to the woods with Watson, where he used to play. Watson's legal team had accused Ricky's mother, but she denied any involvement. Ricky's muddy Clark shoes also indicated his walk into the woods was a one-way trip, and not a case of being murdered by the mother and the body being dragged into the forest, therefore ruling out that accusation. After a trial at London's Old Bailey that took place from January 18th to April 21st, 2022, James Watson, at the age of 41, was found guilty of Ricky Neve's murder. On June 24, 2022, he was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 15 years by Mrs. Justice McGowan. The judge considered Watson's age at the time of Ricky's death as a significant factor in determining the sentence. In June 2023, Watson was granted permission to appeal his conviction. His lawyer argued before the Court of Appeal that Watson was not able to get a fair trial because too much of the evidence from which the killer's DNA could have been recovered was lost or destroyed in the intervening years. This case could have been solved much earlier if the official police records of 6 reported sexual assaults on children in the Welland estate in the 3-year period before Ricky's murder had been thoroughly investigated. If the reports had been followed up, the allegation on his record of touching a 5-year-old could have been a crucial lead to the police in finding the perpetrator. These failures in the investigation add to the list of the many shortcomings in this case. The verdict was a triumph for Ricky's sisters, who had never thought they would see justice for their beloved brother. With the killer finally caught, the family found a sense of closure, allowing them to move forward with their lives while cherishing the memory of the little boy Ricky was back in 1994. Ricky Neve will forever be remembered as a loving and caring brother and a brave and kind-hearted boy. Despite facing challenges at a young age, he showed remarkable courage and love and always protected his sisters. He deserved a life brimming with joy, but tragically, he endured cruelty, neglect, and the ultimate horror of murder. If he had been given the love and affection he deserved, this heart-wrenching tragedy might never have occurred in the first place.